The following is a review of solving equations and inequalities. So you should be able to solve quadratics with all three methods: rationals, radicals, and absolute value equations. You should also be able to solve inequalities that involve quadratic, polynomials, rationals, or absolute value functions. So the examples that I'm going to go through are not going to be inclusive of all these things, but looking at your quick quizzes and just your questions in class, these are the ones I decided to focus on. So the first one, solving rational equations, and you're going to do this by multiplying by the least common denominator to clear the fractions. So first you're going to factor to find what that least common denominator is, and x squared minus 4 then factors to x minus 2 and x plus 2. This means my least common denominator is x minus 2 and x plus 2. So I'm going to multiply every term by that least common denominator over 1, if you want to think about it like that. So here I've factored into each term, so you can see in the red, that's where I'm factoring in, I'm multiplying that least common denominator by every single term. Now I'm going to cancel my common term so I can clear my fractions. So I cancel all the common factors, and I get x times x plus 2 plus the quantity x minus 2 equals 8. Now I can multiply and simplify and set equal to 0. So I have x squared plus 2x plus x minus 2 equals 8. I now can combine my like terms. I get the quadratic x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. And now I'm going to factor and solve. So it multiplies to negative 10, it adds to 3, so I get x plus 5x minus 2 equals 0. And then solving, I have x equals negative 5 or x equals 2. I'm going to plug into the original to check to make sure I don't have any extraneous solutions. So here was my original problem again. And I see that x equals 2 is a domain restriction, so that doesn't work. But when I plug in negative 5, the equation does equal, so that means x equals negative 5 is my only solution. So solving inequalities. So I'm going to talk about two different ones. I'm going to do a quadratic and then a rational, and I'm going to show you the two different methods. So you're going to graph and find the interval where the function is above, which is when it's greater than or equal to, or below the x-axis when it's less than or equal to. And then you're going to make sure that you write the answer in interval notation. So I have this inequality here. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that it's at greater than 0. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides of the equation. So then I get the quadratic x squared plus 4x minus 12. I'm going to factor and find the zeros. So that's going to factor to x plus 6 times the quantity x minus 2. And I solve, which gives me negative 6 and 2. So now I'm going to use the zeros to sketch a graph of the function. So I'm going to plot my negative 6 and 2 on my graph. Remember, I'm just doing a little sketch. It's not perfect. But then I know because A is positive that the quadratic is going to open up like that. And now I have a sketch to tell me where the function is going to be greater than 0, where it's going to be above the x-axis. So I look where it's above the x-axis, and it looks like the interval from negative infinity to negative 6, and then 2 to infinity. Now since it's greater than and not greater than or equal to, I'm going to include parentheses with my interval notation. It's inclusive of both intervals, so I'm going to use the u in between. And that is my final answer. So now solving my inequalities with a rational function. So my first step is I'm going to set the inequality less than or equal to 0. So I need to subtract the 1 from both sides. Now I'm going to combine. I'm going to get a common denominator and combine the two. So I have one fractional expression. My common denominator is going to be x plus 1. So I need to multiply the constant of 1 by x plus 1 over x plus 1. And I get this. Now I need to make sure that I'm going to subtract the top and the bottom, the two tops of the fractions. I'm going to leave the bottom by itself. When I do this, though, I'm going to make sure that I don't forget to distribute the negative sign. So I distribute the negative here, and now I can combine the like terms on the top. So I get x minus 4 over x plus 1 is less than or equal to 0. Now I'm going to find the zeros of the denominator and the numerator. So I set both the factors on the top and the bottom of the fraction equal to 0 and solve. So I get x equals 4 and x equals negative 1. Now with these zeros, I'm going to set up a chart to find where it's positive and negative. So here's my chart. And now I'm going to look at where if I'm taking a number that's less than negative 1, say 0, and I plug 0 into x minus 4, I get a negative. If I plug a number in between negative 1 and 4, let's say 0, 0 minus 4 is negative 4, which is negative. I plug in a number that's greater than 4, which is going to be like 5. 5 minus 4 is 1, which is positive. Then I'm going to check for a number less than negative 1 for x plus 1. So let's say negative 2. I do negative 2 plus 1, which will be negative. Now I'm going to check for a number between negative 1 and 4. So let's say 0. I plug in 0. 0 plus 1 is 1, which is positive. A number greater than 4, 5. 5 plus 1 is 6, which is positive. Okay. Now I'm going to look at the original problem. That was to find where the rational is less than or equal to 0, meaning that you want it to be negative. So if you take x minus 4 divided by x plus 1, and you have a negative divided by negative, it will be a positive. If you have a negative divided by a positive, it will be a negative. If you have a positive divided by a positive, it will be positive. So the only place where the original problem is going to be negative is this interval here, between negative 1 and 4. Now negative 1 is your domain restriction, so I'm going to put a parenthesis around that, but the problem is less than or equal to 0, so I am going to include 4, so I'm going to put the bracket. And that's my final solution. So remember, these are not the only types of problems that will be on your quiz. If you're looking for review, I would suggest looking at the 1.5 and 1.8 sections from the ebook. The problems in there are really good review. The chapter review and test sections at the end of chapter 1, the solutions to the evens and odds are in the back of the book, so they would also be excellent resources. Thank you, and I hope this was helpful.